off as I always do with housekeeping, but you probably want to know my name, so I'll do that first. I'm Ruth Cologne Wagner. I am an employee of NIAPRS. I'm Director of Training and Development, and it's my privilege and pleasure to be here with you today. We've got around 600 and some odd people joining us today, so I believe the room will slowly start letting people in. I do want to start with something that's probably fairly obvious to you by now, is that we automatically muted you upon entry. And the reason that we do that is just to eliminate all background noise. Now, you know, sometimes there are glitches and things don't always work out the way we intended. So I'm actually asking you on your end to mute yourself, you know, on your phone or your computer, or right through Zoom, you can do that as well. So however you need to do that, please do that. And then the other thing you may notice is that your profile, your picture is not on the screen. And that is also by design, because then there would be 600 little boxes all over the place and you'd not be able to see the presentation. Now, I want to be able to give you some advice so that you could actually see the person who's talking much more easily, as well as equally see the PowerPoint presentation. And there's a button on the top of your screen and it says Speaker View. It's a white rectangle with three circles on top of it. If you click that, then what that would do is just show you the person who's speaking in a much larger picture. All right, so you might also find yourself that you have the ability to put yourself on screen. Sometimes Zoom, you know, allows for that flexibility. We are asking you to stay off of screen if you don't mind. All right, want to let you know also that at the end of the presentation, we want to leave some time for questions and answers. But we're also aware that sometimes we don't always get to all the wonderful questions that you ask. So what we're going to do is get together after the webinar, answer those questions, and then make sure that we email them to all of you. We actually might do email, or we just might post it where we post the recording. So I'm not sure which we'll do in the moment, but just know that you will get those. I'm going to move on to the bios of these two gentlemen that you see here in front of you. So here we've got the wonderful Rob Statham. He's been working with NIAPRS, gosh, Rob, 3 years. He's been working with NIAPRS for 3 years. He's got a long work history of employment services. So he's not only been working in employment services and training for the Office of Mental Health, but also for the office, you know, OPWDD. He actually was a recipient of the Rochester Area Employment Network Job Developer of the Year Award. So congratulations, Rob. We're so happy to have you with us here at NIAPRS. One of my most favorite things when I introduce Rob is to tell you that he was a former boy band member. And the name of that group is Carpe Diem. So look them up. All right, let me introduce, oh, wait a minute. Let me tell you something. Before we get to Len, you might notice something. You see that picture? And then go to the previous picture. Yeah, you see him? And then you see the two guys on the side? No coincidence. They are twin brothers. So hopefully their name is actually in their video, so you'll actually know which one is speaking at which time. All right, so this is Len Statham, and he's our Chief Operating Officer for NIAPRS. He's been in the field for about 20 years, and he's got a combination of experiences, specifically in employment services and supporting states, as well as providers and nationally, okay, with how to implement and build their capacity to provide employment services. And he's also a former boy band member. Can you guess which group? All right, guys, next slide, please. So the time that you've been waiting for is here. Yes, we're offering CEUs for social workers, both LMSW and LCSW, and mental health counselors who are licensed, and CPRP. We are offering you 1.0 CE hour at no cost to you. Now, there are two things that you need to do in order to earn this. There's a QR code on the screen. If you would just take out your smartphone, and open up your camera app. All you need to do is hover it over that QR code and automatically will pop up a link. You click on that link and that's just basic information that you're going to enter. Your name, email, and such. And then at the end of the presentation, Rob will also bring up a slide very much like this, but with a slightly different QR code, and you're going to go around the same process with your phone, and you're going to do the evaluation. That is how we're giving you the evaluation form. Now, I tell you all of this, and I know it's fairly involved, but we have to combine these two things in order for you to be eligible. We have to prove your attendance. We're doing that like that. And we have to prove that you submitted an evaluation, and that's how we're doing those. The two of them back in the office, we combine them, and that in turn makes you eligible for this one CE. Now, please give us about 30 days for processing this. You guys know that NIAPRS is doing a lot of webinars this summer, and so we are a bit backlogged. 30 days is our typical processing time, so it might even be longer than that. All right, next slide, please. So it's also important for you, some people out there might not know who we are. We are NIAPRS, that stands for the New York Association of Psychiatric Rehabilitation Services. And we are a change agent organization. And we are a change agent because we improve the lives of people receiving services. And we do this in a variety of ways. So that we work on public policy, and we work on helping people with their social conditions to address their mental health, substance use, trauma-related challenges, and just overall promoting their health, their wellness, and their recovery. One of the things that's important to us is that people live in a community of their choosing. And we do all of this wonderful stuff. We advocate, we educate, we demonstrate, and we innovate. Rob, I'm passing this along to you now.
Okay, thank you, Ruth, for that lovely introduction. So we put this, we've been putting this training together really almost over a month now, and we wanted to hone in on 4 different areas that we think is really important to how we're providing services in a different landscape. And for the first objective is to gain an understanding of how different this landscape is. So we're going to be talking about that in terms of the settings. We're also going to be talking about, if you've had any of my trainings, I'm always harping and talking about the relationships that you have with people that you support. And so we're going to talk about how this has changed because we're now in a virtual relationship with this person. We're going to identify specific ways that you can help people remotely. And finally, we're going to give you our view of the present state of the economic reality that we all kind of find ourselves in as it relates to the job market. So the first thing that we really, I think is important to do is just acknowledge what's happened. If I were to ask the question 6 months ago, did anybody even know what the coronavirus was? I would probably get maybe 20% knew what it was. And everything's happened so quickly, so fast. And so it's important that we acknowledge that, and we actually help people that we're working with understand that it happened very quickly as well. And it has. I mean, everything that we know in terms of our lives have changed very radically, especially the economy. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that. I also think it's important that we acknowledge that we're all learning. I mean, NIAPRS, we just started really doing webinars when this happened. So we converted all of our trainings to webinar format. It was bumpy, and you're probably finding out that your experiences on Zoom have been bumpy as well, in the video format, those kinds of things. But we're all learning, including the people that we're providing services to. And I think that's important to acknowledge that learning is taking place. It's also important to give yourself a break. As I said, you're going to get things wrong. The people that we're providing services to may get things wrong too, and it's okay to give yourself a little break for that. As well as just the acknowledgement that things are going to be different. They are different now, and more likely they're going to be different in the future. This is kind of evolving as we're going through it. And so be adaptable to the change that's happening and be looking for the changes that are occurring as well. It's also important, I mentioned this in a lot of different trainings that I provide, is how important it is to hold on to what you can control. There are so many things out of our control these days, whether it be the finding of the job to having to wear that mask or go out in public. Those are things that may be a little bit out of control. So it's really important for us to focus on things that we can control. And maybe that is how we spend our time during the day. Are we using it in a productive way? Are we assisting people that we provide services to manage their time in a more productive way, to focus on the tasks of reskilling or learning more things, or even the job search? So those things we can control. I also think it's important to help somebody during this time of crisis. There is so much opportunity for people to go out and help people. There are a lot of people that need help. That's why NIAPRIS has a Strive for 5 challenge, which we're asking people to just reach out to 5 people every day and check on them, see how they're doing. Lots of people are lonely during this period of time. There are a lot of people that are a little scared as well. So just going out and the act of helping someone is important. Now, we do it for a living. We help people for a living, and we feel pretty good when we're able to do that. So I think it's more important to let or encourage people that we're providing services to go out and help somebody, whether it be, cutting someone's lawn or going to get someone's groceries. Those things are really impossible, and quite frankly, may lead to the network that they may find when they're looking for work. I mentioned being open to change, and finally, practicing self-care, whether that be a walk in the evening, whether it be a mindfulness meditation that you do at the beginning of every day, like NIAPRIS does, just something that you're doing that's taking care of yourself, and encourage these same things for the people that we provide services to. Okay, so Lynn.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple things, Rob. I think you've nailed it. It's really being flexible in this time where we don't have a lot of control over things. And then also the continuing to look for opportunities, because any kind of crisis is always an opportunity. Hopefully today we'll talk about what the opportunities are in today's job market. But the opportunity is now. A lot of people think, well, there's not a lot of jobs out there and I shouldn't be talking about employment now. There's other more important issues. Employment is always an issue that we need to talk about. And I think it's actually more of an important topic right now, simply because a lot of people are experiencing the every day is Saturday mentality. We have a lot of people that are in the general population that have been out of work, and they don't like it. They don't like being home all the time. And so you might even have some people that previous to this pandemic said, yeah, employment's not very good for people with mental illness. You might have those people that said that before that are now unemployed and at home for the last 3 months, saying something much different because they've now experienced what every day off is like. And it's not good for one's mental health. So I'm hoping that this will be an opportunity for us to talk about employment in a different way and make our point even more than we have in the past. And then this concept, this psych rehab concept of change happens when we become uncomfortable. And it pertains to employment, but it also pertains to one's life. If you look at your own life and you think about the changes that you've made in your own life, it usually occurs when you're not feeling comfortable, whether it's in a relationship and you decide you're going to get out of the relationship, or if it is maybe a change in career or housing. It's just that time when people's level of comfort exceeds their fear of change. And so now is a good time to talk about employment. And of course, throughout this pandemic and even further in and out of the pandemic, always teaching about recognizing and talking about people's resiliency. Going back to work is difficult. If you've been out of work 4 or 5, 6 years and all of a sudden deciding that you want to go back to work, that's a very important step to take. And people need support in that, because looking for work is difficult. It's a job unto itself. It is a constant, you're constantly being rejected because, it takes a while to get a job. And so it really tests your resilience. And then finally, just joining the workforce with support is why we're all here, because we want to support the individuals that are choosing to raise their hand and say yes to employment. We want to help them in any way that we can. And the ways in which we help people today are a little bit different than the ways that we have previously helped people. Rob?
Yeah, so I want to just talk about the difference between just a few months ago and how we're providing services now. So I've got a then and now screen here. So the way that we provided services in the past, obviously, was face-to-face, physical, being with somebody there, but now we're providing it in a totally different way. Some of us are having phone calls with people. Some of us are using some of the technology of Zoom and Adobe and GoToMeeting and those kinds of things. But it's different, you know, when you're on a phone call with somebody, you can't see them. You don't you don't pick up the social cues that are going on. I'm saying this from both sides as well. You're not able to maybe focus as much when you're on screen or even on the phone, you're distracted. So engagement is a little tougher when you're not with somebody. There are tricks and trades that we can use to engage people from afar, which we're doing right now. But it's a little bit more challenging. So the work that we have to do in this area is even greater. Prior to COVID-19, our focus was employment for people with psychiatric disabilities. That was our main concern. And now we are spending more time just talking to people about the virus itself or life changes, all the changes that are going on. And I actually think that there's kind of an opening with this because as we'll talk about in some later slides here, the relationship that you have with this person really matters. You build up a certain trust and now they're talking to you about some really deep subjects in terms of their overall health, their fears about going back to work in terms of a health and safety aspect. So we're concerned with more than just the employment piece. Now we're concerned on a deeper level with this person, and we can grow our relationship with that person as a result. I think that's actually a good thing. We were always concerned about stability, stabilizing this person on the job, making sure they reach their 90 days, those kinds of things. But now there's a little bit more involved in that as well. It's about managing the change. There may be lots of changes for this person when they go back to work. So I'm thinking of somebody that may work at a Wegmans and they're pushing carts for a living now. And that's what they do. So before it was just go grab the cart, put it back in, say hi to customers. Well, that role is going to change quite a bit because now they're going to be wiping off and sanitizing every cart for each customer. That's an added duty. I was at Wegmans 2 days ago, and the helping hands person there was actually making sure that people were coming in the store with the 6 feet social distancing. So there's new duties and tasks that are assigned to different jobs. And so again, helping people manage those things and the new expectations for people that are on those jobs. Also, technology. So limited use of technology. Internet was always important, but now just to even communicate with people, we've got to communicate for the most part. Everybody knows how to use a phone, unless it's a smartphone, that can be a little challenging. But now we're talking about teaching people platforms like Zoom and Adobe and all those other things. And because that may be a real necessity for people to understand these technologies and use them, because this may be the way that they interface and interview with employers going forward and recruiters. We have gone from a great economy just 2 or 3 months ago to one that is we have a lot of uncertainty in the economy. We're going to be talking about the economy as it relates to the 4 phases of reopening in New York State toward the end of the presentation. But right now there's a lot of uncertainty that's going on. And the people that you provide services to, they have a lot of uncertainty about the training, about the economy as well. I still do job development work, and I can tell you about a meeting I had just this past week where the first 30 minutes of that meeting was talking about this person's fears. This person has a fear of losing their house. This person has a fear of going back and being safe in the workplace. They have a fear of unemployment running out. So there's all these emotions that this person is experiencing. And I was there to offer this person hope and tell them you're thinking about things that haven't happened yet, you know, the psych rehab model. And so really spending time and giving people a little bit of certainty in this uncertain economy. We've always been concerned with safety for individuals, but now we have to be concerned about health. And having somebody exposed to the virus potentially if they're one of those vulnerable populations. So we have to be thinking about their personal health as we're thinking about potential positions for this person, for this job. You know, it's interesting that, you know, I've been in this work 20 years, and I have never seen in all my years so many receptionist jobs open. And that's because a lot of people are bailing on those jobs because they're frontline. They don't want to deal with the public. And so I'm seeing opportunities there for people who are not vulnerable. And so just an acknowledgement that people do have some health and safety concerns that we need to be aware of. We have also gone, and this really applies to both ourselves and the people that we work with, to our lives were scheduled for the most part. And now there's more empty time, especially if you're home, you live alone. Len kind of alluded to, we're all kind of feeling like it's Saturdays now. So how do we help people fill that time, manage that empty time? What tools are we giving them in terms of maybe an assessment that they can take, or some kind of an online assessment that they can use to see what skills they need to upgrade, those kinds of things. So it's about helping people manage that time. And finally, we did on-site coaching before. We were actually on the job helping people. And now we're doing what we call virtual coaching. And virtual coaching means we're not there. We might be on the phone with somebody as they're explaining something to us. We could, in some senses, do Zoom. That may be a little bit more difficult if the person's walking around in a job and that kind of thing. But there's actually, in terms of the virtual coaching, there's a couple things that I want to point out about, like some pluses regarding the virtual coaching. And that is, for some folks, it actually may decrease their anxiety not having that person there and not feeling the otherness of having an additional person on the job with them. So that may be something. It also may be decrease the stigma for this person, that they have another person kind of helping them on the job. It forces people to learn and grow without the aid or sometimes crutch of a job coach. So we see people that may break out of the learned helplessness and they're relying on the job coach. So that may be a good thing when we're kind of force people into that box. And then the other thing is, I think when we're online and virtually coaching people over the phone, we're actually a little bit more explicit in our communication. And I think that's kind of important, that we spend time over communicating rather than under communicating. Len?
Yeah, the only thing I would mention here, Rob, is even the employment concerns that we had before, they've become even heightened. Just to give an example, childcare. While childcare has always been important in terms of barriers to help people address, it's even more so now when schools aren't open. And so you have that as a major concern, whereas in the past you might have been able to schedule around a person's school when kids are in school. So even the employment concerns have been exacerbated because of the pandemic.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I think it's important for us to understand is our own mindset when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the job market and things like that. And we need to have what we would consider a growth mindset. And a growth mindset happens, it's a belief that no matter what the circumstances are, we will figure it out. If we fail, we will learn from that failure. We see opportunities where other people do not see them. And job developers and placement specialists need to have this mindset. If you talk to two different groups of people, if you talk to people in government, it's interesting, there's more of a fear language in government. But if you talk to individual businesses, despite the odds against them. If you talk to individual businesses, they have that growth mindset. They say, we're going to get through this. We're going to figure it out. It's going to be different. We're going to make some changes, but by God, we're going to make this work. And that's the kind of mindset that, like I said, job developers and placement specialists need to have, because if you don't have that mindset, the person that you're providing services to will follow your mindset. So it's really important that you refocus your mind and really look at this as an opportunity, because there are tons of opportunities out there. We're going to talk about some as we continue this presentation. Len?
I couldn't agree more, Rob. I think that it's an opportunity for us to change the way we think, and passing that along to the people that we serve. And one way to do that is through our communication. Our communication is essential, and it has been become even more important. I've got this little funny slide here, which is let's eat grandma, and then let's eat grandma. And that's really just to illustrate how important it is to communicate to people. And by the way, the punchline to this is punctuation saves lives. But I'm using it here because I think that we need to increase our communication with people. You know, one of the things that I've found during this pandemic is I am talking more with my staff than I ever did before. And so it's really helped me to see how important that is. And I think it's also very important to, as Rob said, over communicate. Now we can rely on email, we can rely on any kind of Zoom chat, and I think that's extremely important. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with just picking up the phone and talking with people that way. Sometimes I think what gets lost in texts and emails is the ability to sort of quickly say, oh, I did not quite understand you, or are you coming across this way? I actually just sent an email to my finance director last week because I was so busy. I just kept emailing her all day long. And at the end of the day, I thought, I better just pick up the phone and call her, because she might be, the impression I'm giving is that I either don't have time for you, or that whatever a person can read from a text or read into an email. So I just picked up the phone and said, no, we're all cool. I just didn't want you to think that my terse emails were anything but me being rushed. So it's really important to keep communication open. Again, phone, email, web, we have all these different ways to connect with people. And hopefully sometime in the near future, if not the distant future, we'll be back to doing person to person, which ultimately I think is probably the best way to be with people. But for right now, we are where we are. And but I would kick up the communication a notch. And helping the person become comfortable with technology. I noticed that there was a question in the chat box. I want to address that now, which is, some people don't have access to this technology. So what do we do? Which is the next point, which is be accessible. How can you be accessible to someone who doesn't have a smartphone? Most of the platforms that we're using, Zoom or Adobe Connect, or you name the platform, you can actually download the apps and use them on your phone, but some people don't have smartphones. So sometimes it's a matter of working with other providers to help them get the basic smartphone to do the to be able to really take advantage of these platforms. I would also see if in this day and age, maybe Access VR is something that would fund a purchase of a smartphone, not necessarily the ongoing charges, but because it is in this world, it is increasingly more important to have as a job search tool. Connecting with your shared experience, people are using Facebook, all sorts of other social media to let people know that they're looking for work. I would continue to do that. LinkedIn has become even more of a way that people are doing so. And I just think that those platforms are going to be more and more important as we continue this remote relationship building. Rob, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I do, Len. I think the way that we connect with our shared experience is this. We are all experiencing COVID-19. And so when we go deeper in that relationship, we're talking about COVID-19 and what we are all universally experiencing. That matters. It's on everybody's mind. So let's talk about it. Let's share how we're feeling about things and how they're feeling about things. That will deepen the relationship and deepen the trust in you two, or the individual working with you. I cannot overestimate that much.
And we are all peers in this.
That's right. There's a reason why the peer experience is so valuable. And again, this is a way that we become valuable as well. And again, just socializing and engaging with this person is just really just critical. What?
The continued theme of building relationships. This is something that you've all done prior to COVID-19. It's something that you're going to do after COVID-19, and it's something that you're going to do now through COVID-19. And some of the things that we do is we plan for appointments and meetings. So now, instead of going to that person or having that person meet you at a Dunkin' Donuts or even in the office, you will make a plan to call them or make a plan to get on a platform and see them. And, as it's even more important now to give the person your full attention, simply because they can't see you. And so sometimes you don't, again, Rob said, there's no social cues for you to pick up on, especially if you're just on the phone with people. So really listening becomes even more important than it was before. And I just think that of all the skills that we need to move through this period of time, when you're in a virtual environment, listening is probably number one. You're going to continue to celebrate successes and milestones. You're just going to do it in different ways. And one of the things that I found extremely helpful that I never used to do prior to the pandemic is summarize the meeting and the next steps. I would sort of do that informally, but now it's very formal in terms of, okay, this is what we talked about. This is where we're going to go, and these are the next steps that are going to get us to that place. And it's really helped to solidify my relationships with all of my coworkers. And I'm sure would be helpful in building relationships with the people that you serve.
So Len, I just want to kind of double back on the plan for the meeting. I think it needs to be even more detailed. So when I'm talking about planning for the meeting, I'm talking about allowing 15 minutes or so for engagement, finding out where they're at in terms of the pandemic, everything like that. Maybe you spend another 15 minutes on job search if that's where they're going, or if we're preparing for the search, talking about their work history, those kinds of things. Because if we don't do that, if we don't plan for a full hour that we might be spending with them, the meeting is going to last 25 minutes. It's just going to be very short. And that sends a message to the person. That sends a message to the person that it's a bad time to look for work, or there's not a lot out there. You're wasting my time, those things. That's the message that you're sending. So if we're more planful about what's going to be discussed in that meeting and have enough for a full hour or more, I think that makes the meeting better for you and for the person that you're providing services to. And it's also, I think, we can kind of, because of what's the change that's happened, I think we can build in expectations now for the person. And maybe the expectation is, that you come ready to discuss 5 different jobs, or you spend a half hour on an assessment on Career Zone or something like that. But just so we know that there's an agreement that there is a built-in expectation in the new way that we're doing things, I think will help this person become more invested in the process of finding a job, and it's not just you doing the work for them. And so at the end of the meeting, I think it's very important to get something done. Meaning, if we've spent an hour on our time together, I want something tangible to say to this person, this is what we did. And I can remember even pre-COVID, when I would be working with people, I'd have the resume done after the first meeting, and I would hand it to them. And you could see this person, they got it. And a lot of them said to me, wow, Rob, you really mean business. And yeah, I did mean business. I want people to leave this meeting believing that they got something out of it, and we just didn't get anything done. Because when you get something done, either virtually or in person, that's the fuel. That is the fuel that people need to actually see the steps of progress. And I can't overestimate that, because that's what people are looking for. They want to see progress. So how can we help? There's so many ways in which we can help people. The first bullet here talks about involving the person in the process. And, if we're including expectations or thinking about expectations for this person, we are including them in the process. They have a voice in terms of the process, in terms of the types of work that they want to do, or in the exploration of careers and things like that. So at every step of the way, whether it be virtually or in person, it involves involving this person in the process, so they take ownership of the art of finding a job. Now is a great time to actually get connected to the job market. As Leonard mentioned, there's more and more people who are using LinkedIn right now. And so I have myself as a job developer still doing the work of job development. I probably reached out over the course of the last 2 months to about 50 people that I wouldn't have done before. Now, I'll be very honest, my batting average for those 50 people, 10 people have gotten back to me. So it's not a very high batting average, but you know what it is? It's 10 more people that I can talk to about jobs for people. And that is a great thing. That's the connection that we're looking for. And I always describe the hidden job market as this. You have a staff meeting and your boss comes in and says, we have an opening. And I just want to know, does anybody here on staff know anybody that has a bachelor's degree in this area and can do this type of work? And somebody says, yeah, I have a best friend that's looking for work. And your boss says, bring them in. I want to talk to them. They come in. Your boss loves them. The boss knows who they want to hire. But legally, they have to post that job, and they post it and start the process of looking for people, even though they already know who they want to hire. And so when we're linking in with people via LinkedIn or even just calling employers, we're starting that process of becoming part of that hidden job market, which is how a lot of people, most people, find jobs within that hidden job market. So becoming a part of that hidden job market is pretty important. We can use this time with the people that we provide services to do what we call upskilling or reskilling of their skills through the available resources. I've listed some of them here, and I can't tell you because I've spent quite a lot of time on these sites on the last 30 days, seeing what's possible on these sites. So when you're thinking about onetonline.org, there's so much information on onetonline.org. If you've never used it, I highly suggest you use it. It gives you great job descriptions and very, very specific job descriptions in terms of the person's skill level, their education, the type of personalities that would do well in this field. There's just so much great information on this website. They have an interest profiler of 60 questions that kind of helps the person identify what may be a good field for them to go in. So there's great information on that site. Career Zone is another one, kind of goes along with Job Zone, although Career Zone has some fabulous resources for youth and youth services that if you're working with youth, that is not to be missed. Job Zone, again, helps people develop resumes and cover letters. There's sorts of tools on there to help people with that in terms of identifying different careers and assessments on there as well. And of course, LinkedIn, as we've said, maybe now's the time to help this person get a really solid LinkedIn account. I did list a couple of new sites that I am now familiar with. One is called help1billion.com. That is a recent website that really just started after the pandemic, so that it's a job portal. So you may want to look at that. A lot of the larger corporations are using this as a platform. And also the flexjobs.com and virtual vocations, because we know now that a lot of people may be working virtually. So virtual vocations is a great site that identifies all sorts of different jobs, virtual jobs. And what we're seeing is, I'm seeing a lot of, on that website, I'm seeing a lot of jobs that aren't even based in New York. They're based all over the United States, but you can do them anywhere. And so, we tend to employ a lot of call center type people. And so maybe this is, this may be a site that could be really helpful for this person. And flex jobs are, again, other jobs that you can do at home as well to really help people, because we're thinking about work differently now. We're looking at work in a different way. Len, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think the flex jobs is interesting because it can actually help people with some of the employment concerns that people have that have been heightened, like childcare. Much easier to do at home with the kids, even though it can be difficult. At least you can be at the job. So some of these flex jobs in the virtual world actually can help alleviate another major barrier, which is transportation. So I think there's a lot to be said for some of these virtual jobs that are starting to pop up.
Yeah. So other ways that we can help, again, we should be doing this all the time. Now we're doing virtually, but we should be doing this all the time, is really have conversations to identify strengths and talents and skill sets of individuals. We're actually finding, at least I'm finding, that a lot of the people that we provide services to have been very resilient during this time. That is a strength. That's something that we should be highlighting. So having these conversations around their strengths and talents is how we really begin to build this person's confidence up, because you need somewhat of confidence in the job hunting process. Because Len stated it's hard to be rejected all the time. You really need that buffer of confidence. For individuals that have been working, have been laid off, I think it's perfectly fine to help them with their earned income or their earned benefit, which is an unemployment insurance. And in New York State, the unemployment insurance backlog has not been kind to a lot of people. People have been waiting and are still waiting to get unemployment. And I think it's important that we realize that this is a benefit that's been earned, and to help people with that benefit. Because believe it or not, they will remember that you helped them with this benefit that they've earned. So that's something that we could be helping with them as well. There's all sorts of ways that we can practice practice for phone screens, because now we're on the phone a lot with that person. We can help this person develop conversational skills on the phone or through any of the video platforms that we've talked about, because again, as I mentioned, they may be interviewing this way in the future. So we want them to become comfortable with this new way of communicating with people. And so we have time to practice and help people become a little bit more comfortable with these aspects of the way that employment is provided. We want to connect people to resources in the community, whether it be a food pantry or a food bank that they may need some assistance in food. I know a lot of the libraries aren't open yet, but they are actually offering a lot of virtual employment services. And so that you may connect somebody to who's working on job services for employment at the local library. So whatever the resources they need, we should be assisting that person in gathering resources. And again, more of providing comfort with the video virtual interaction with recruiters. Len?
Let's move to the next slide, Rem.
Okay. So additionally, how we can help is retooling some of the tools. So maybe that is retooling the resume, maybe retooling the cover letter, really helping this person, again, develop that LinkedIn account. helping this person with any aspects of interviewing, whether it be a mock interview. We have time to do that now. So I think, again, spending time to make these things even better will help this person in the long run. There may be a need for recoaching, as I said. The things that are happening out in the world of work now have changed. So if we can assist people in their changing work roles, the better. Because again, I believe that people, when there are added things to their job tasks, they're a little bit scared over the whole situation. So I think it's important that we spend some time recoaching, and especially, they may need coaching if they've been out of work for the 2 or 3 months that this has been going on. We may need to recoach them on the things that they already did prior to that. So, but there's all sorts of coaching that will need to be done. Maybe they don't understand the whole social distancing thing, or maybe, just the fact that we have to wash our hands a lot and sanitize things, that we have to help people maybe identify that some people may not like to wear the mask, that some people may be a little bit on edge as you're going to the grocery store or wherever you're working. So there's a new norm, and we want to help people through coaching through that norm. The last two things are kind of hand in hand, and that is getting to know the person and offering hope and encouragement. So I think both of those things are not exclusive. We have time now to get to know the person, not just as a job seeker, but as a complete person, their fears and hopes for the future. And we spend time doing that. When we spend time doing that, it's even better.
So even in a downward economy, people are hiring. So the only people that don't get hired during a pandemic like this are people that have given up. And actually, you have an edge right now, because unfortunately, a lot of people have given up on looking for work. And so the competition is not as fierce. You're going to use a lot of the same strategies that you've used before, which is helping to keep people active, helping to keep people activated towards employment, keep searching for employment, keep looking online for, because we're limited to just virtual at this point, online. But as Rob pointed out, there's a couple, probably 3 or 4 more new sites that have popped up because a lot more people are looking for work online. The other thing to have people make sure that they're making sure that they are aware of, that the hiring process, it takes longer because people are spread out. And so there's nothing wrong with the fact that it's taking longer, but you just need to make people aware of the fact that it's taking longer. And there's still, ultimately, it's the building relationships with employers, a little more difficult to do in today's environment, but still, it's still extremely important. The online and remote work is actually probably the jobs that are out there right now. And there's a tremendous opportunity out there for self-employment on platforms for work. If you just think of companies like DoorDash or Grubhub, where people are delivering food from restaurants that are trying to stay open. You've got Uber, you've got Lyft, you've got Amazon Flex, you've got Instacart or Thumbtack and eBay. There's all sorts of ways that people are trying to find work online. And those are just a few companies. There's a lot more. But it's important to stay in the game.
You know, Len, it's interesting that some of these, this online remote platform work we never thought of for people who had disabilities. But now we're thinking about them. And then some people are really just are doing very well in these platforms. I know Instacart 3 months ago had 250,000 people working for them. And now they have over 775,000. So these are the places that are hiring. And so we want to go where the jobs are. And right now it is online, this remote work that's happening.
The other thing is self-employment. Self-employment's big too. I mean, There's a lot of studies that have show that in down economic times, that's when most companies are founded, because people have to think about what they can do to earn a living. And self-employment, we don't do enough talking about. It's simply a great way to, for people to earn a living, to be able to control how much they make, and in case somebody wants to stay on benefits. It's a pathway towards a meaningful role and life for people. And it's just, it gives people a sense of control over their own earnings and life.
Yeah. So I wanted to spend our last few minutes talking about what can we expect as we move forward in terms of the economy. And as job placement people, as job developers, we should be aware of how New York is going to be rolling out. And really other states, you should be aware of how your other states are going to be rolling out in terms of employment as well. And Governor Cuomo has said we're not going to turn on a light switch and everything kind of comes back. We here in New York are going to be doing things in phases, but it's important that people who are in this business of placing people pay attention to the news conferences that are going on with the governor, any bulletins that come out, any edicts that come from government. I mean, you really have to know this stuff. And so it's really important for New York. There's actually three main factors that's going to determine this rollout, this 4-phase rollout. The first thing is protections for employees and their customers. That is going to be crucial. So that may be changes to the adjustment of hours, the design of the place that they're working. They're going to be working to reduce density in places. So if you're working in a restaurant, they may only open 50% of the tables. These are things that you really need to be thinking about. Secondly, again, the physical appearance of the workforce is going to change. The close contact of people, the 6 feet distance required is going to be very important that people understand that and know that. And the hygiene standards of making sure the entire area of the work environment is cleaned, sanitized, so to protect people. And finally, the last factor is really the whole public safety issue, to keep everybody that walks into that place safe. Now, as I mentioned, there are some opportunities out there right now. Delivery options, grocery stores, warehouses such as Amazon, healthcare, cleaning, online work, cashiers, receptionists, tutors, tech support. There are entities that are hiring. So it's important that we know where those opportunities lie. There are 4 phases of the rollout for New York State. Right now we're in phase 1. It's construction, manufacturing, and wholesale, as well as some retail pickup. Phase 2 will come shortly thereafter. It will be professional services, finance, retail, finally being able to get a haircut, those kinds of things. Phase 3 will be restaurants and food service areas opening, although you're seeing some of the restaurant industry kind of lobby New York for outside seating to be available right away, as long as it's the 6 feet distance rule. And then the last rollout is the arts and the entertainment and sports. So that's going to take a little bit longer. And so if you have people that are in that field, and I'm working with somebody right now who wants to work in the field of arts, I basically let this person know it's going to be a while. And so I've also encouraged him to think differently, to think if you want to work and you want to work right now, let's think about some other possibilities for you. And I think, for them, if you have somebody that you're working with and they just want to do that one thing, because we've all had these people that want to do one thing, take every opportunity to expose them to things that they don't know about. All of us here on this call probably didn't initially want to maybe do things that we didn't want to do. But then we found that we love the things that we want to do. And so I think that's a really good strategy when you're working with people, is to open their world in a lot of ways. Len?
So we have 4 minutes left, and just want to thank everybody for being here today. And if there are some questions, I saw a lot of questions actually in the chat box. If we take a question or two, but keep in mind that we are going to get back to, we're going to actually answer every single question and send them out to everybody.
All right, so thank you guys. Please don't go anywhere, anyone. We actually have a question that came in, and this is from Ryan, and it is, what is the best strategy to address the mentality of people not wanting to work or return to work because, quote unquote, I'm making more on unemployment?
So that's true. I mean, there's more people now with a $600 bonus. That's something that we have to talk about. But I will tell you that July 31st is approaching pretty quickly.
Right.
That's when that ends, and it's very unlikely that that will be reapproved for anything past July 31st. So now when we're starting to look now, we're actually preparing that person for the cliff, which is going to happen on July 31st.
Okay, thank you. So we've got Marty who asked a question, and it's, how do we cope with the poor working conditions? For example, places not providing proper PPE. Instacart and Amazon are also known for treating workers humanely. I don't know if that means inhumanely.
So I'll take this question, Rob. While there are places that are hiring, and we've all, even before COVID, there are places that you just didn't want to work. So, however, that is up to the individual, and you having an open and honest conversation about maybe what their business practices are, and having that conversation with them, and ultimately it's them, and they decide, okay, I want to work here, and then after they've made that decision, even though you might not agree with it, then you help them to advocate while they're in the position. And if they are not provided with the proper PPEs, then you're there helping them to get it, even if it's coming from off-site. So ultimately, it does rest with the individual.
I don't see any further questions, but I got to tell you, it seems that everyone loved your presentation and that all the information came very timely. So there's a lot of kudos to the Statham brothers here.
All right.
Well, Ruth, again, I want to thank you for moderating and let other people know that, NIAPRS can do trainings for your individual organization. We have a lot of trainings here on the slide here. So if you're looking for employment trainings, reach out to us. This is our contact page here. And we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to be able to provide training for your organization around employment.
Wonderful. For those of you looking for CEUs, we will be emailing you the evaluation form. And sorry about the cue card error from before. So don't worry. And thank you all very much for joining us. We appreciate you very much, and be safe and be healthy. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Len. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Ruth.